නැවුම් සුවඳින් පිරේ නවරින් වෙළඳපොලේ අඩුම මිලකට.
සුවඳවත් තේරීමක්. ස්මාර්ට් ඉදිරියක්.
Mob justice. Angry mob torched residents of filling station owner amid long queues for fuel. Safeguard us. Sri Lanka Petroleum Private Tanker Owners Association plead police protection amid mob violence. Some redress. PUCSL to minimize power cuts starting tomorrow. Request not to inconvenience students sitting GC ordinary level examinations.
We need to make sure that we'll have minimum interruption to the power for our students to study and maybe sit for their exams. And therefore,
Neighborhood first. India delivers over 2 billion rupees worth humanitarian assistance consignment, part of a larger 5.5 billion rupee commitment.
It's a great pleasure for me and a great honor to symbolically hand over this consignment.
All this and much more coming up on this Sunday, the 22nd of May 2022.
නෙල්ලි මතකෙන් ගිලිහුණු බ්ලැක් ෂයිනි කෙස් කලඹක රහස සන්සිල්ක් බ්ලැක් ෂයින් සමගින්.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a warm welcome. You're joining us on AdaDerana English News tonight, and I'm Indivari Amwatha. Shortages of fuel, gas and other commodities in the country continue to grow as Sri Lanka's economic crisis deepens, mainly due to a severe dearth in foreign currency. However, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation has taken measures to nonetheless ensure that whatever stocks of fuel received are distributed to all refilling stations in the island, and has done so within a shipment of diesel and petrol that arrived yesterday.
Sri Lankan authorities are currently scraping the bottom of the barrel as a foreign currency crisis leaves fuel, domestic LP gas and other essential commodities in shortage. The sight of long queues with no end in sight has become rather common over the past months. However, the Muthurajwala Petroleum Terminal of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation continued to distribute fuel across the country last night. Sipetco stated that they have taken measures to distribute all types of fuel to all refueling stations in the island. Meanwhile, Sipetco had taken measures to unload a consignment of diesel that was received by the India credit line and a shipment of petrol that the corporate had paid after sourcing the necessary US dollar currency yesterday. With unloading of the petrol shipment complete, another shipment of petrol that payments were made for was also unloaded today. Further, shipments of diesel and petrol are due to arrive in Sri Lanka on the 25th and 29th of this month.
Now, the Public Utilities Commission assures of minimal power interruptions starting tomorrow until the 1st of June in lieu of the GCE ordinary level examinations. Chairman of the Utilities Regulatory Commission said that there will also be no power cuts after 6:30 p.m. on examination days. PUCSL Chair Janaka Ratnayaka meanwhile requested the public to refrain from protesting on roads and disrupting traffic during the examination times to ensure that O-level students are not inconvenienced.
we know that our GC ordinary level exams will commence from tomorrow to 1st of June, and we have made many efforts to make sure that during this examination period and during the nights that there will not be any power cuts. That is in order to support the students. More than 517,000 students are sitting for O-level examination this year. We need to make sure that we'll have minimum interruption to the power for our students to study and maybe sit for their exams. And therefore, we will have the schedule of power cuts with minimum disturbances is given in our websites, and consumers can refer to our websites and see what are the times that power cuts will exist. And the main reason of this press briefing is to make an appeal to the public to refrain from blocking the roads, especially during the examination time, for our students to travel freely and go back to their respective places. We have seen many roads were blocked due to many demands and the protest, and if we continue to do so from tomorrow to during the examination period, our students will get disturbed, our transport system will get disturbed, and therefore they will not be able to attend to their examinations and go back to their homes.
Litro Gas Lanka Limited said it dispatched 85,000 domestic LP gas cylinders to the market as promised, but more than half of the hundreds of people lined up in queues from early this morning were once again disappointed. Yesterday, Litro Gas Lanka chairman assured that over 80,000 cylinders of domestic LP gas will be released to the market daily, making the public available to basic commodities such as LP gas for cooking purpose. More LPG shipments are expected to arrive in Colombo next week as well. Sri Lanka is set to pay $7 million in payment for 2 shipments of domestic gas expected tomorrow.
Litro Gas Lanka Limited said it dispatched domestic LP gas cylinders until midnight yesterday from its Muthurajawala terminal. Although today is a holiday, Litro said it will issue the promised number of gas cylinders to the market today. But more people were disappointed as many outlets could not fulfill the demands of those standing in long queues. Litro Gas stated that they will make payments of $7 billion for 2 separate shipments of LP gas cylinders that are due to arrive in the country tomorrow.
Protesters joining the Golfers Green protest site last night extended their support to Sri Lankans in Europe who have planned to stage a demonstration in front of the Human Rights Council headquarters in Geneva. Gota Gogama protesters signed a petition in a show of support to that demonstration. Now, the protest is expected to get underway in Geneva on the 5th of June, calling for the money stolen from the Sri Lankan people be returned.
The Golfers Green struggle calling for President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to go home continues with support pouring in for the struggle. All those who gathered at the protest site last night signed a petition in support of a demonstration planned by a group of Sri Lankans living in Europe on the 5th of June in front of the Human Rights Council in Geneva. The theme of the protest is Give Back Our Stolen Money. Meanwhile, a musical performance was also organized at the Gota Gogama site. This morning marked the 45th consecutive day since the protest began. The deaf and mute community was also seen extending their support to the struggle. Meanwhile, tourist guide and environmental protection organizations staged a protest today at the US Embassy. Later, the group carried out their protest in front of temple trees and then marched towards the Golfers Green protest site.
Ship with urgent relief supplies of rice, medicine and milk powder worth over 2 billion rupees was handed over to Sri Lanka today. This is the first incoming consignment under a larger consignment of 40,000 metric tons of rice, 500 metric tons of milk powder and medicine from Tamil Nadu to the tune of over 5.5 billion rupees. The High Commission of India in Colombo, Gopal Bagle, said that he was honoured to assist Sri Lanka in this time of need and that this was just part of a larger package yet to be delivered to the island nation.
The consignment of 9,000 metric tons of rice, 50,000 metric tons of milk powder and over 25,000 metric tons of pharmaceutical drugs and other medical supplies was officially handed over by the Indian High Commissioner Gopal Bagle to Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Peiris. The consignment was flagged off from the Chennai port by Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu M.K. Stallinan on the 18th of May. The relief items are to be distributed among beneficiaries across the country, including the northern, eastern, central and western provinces. The Indian High Commissioner in Colombo said more humanitarian aid and other forms of assistance from India will follow.
It's a great pleasure for me and a great honor to symbolically hand over this consignment, the first of a few that are to arrive, carrying the much needed food, medicines and other essential items which are required by the people of Sri Lanka. These are from the people of India, and this denotes the close bond of friendship between the people of India and the people of Sri Lanka.
And we take a short break to return with more news on AdaDerana 24.
Big 3.
Welcome back to the news. Angry and frustrated consumers in the country have resorted to violence at many refilling stations over having to wait for long hours in lengthy queues to just be disappointed over the lack of fuel.
The shortage of fuel in the country amid a shortage of other essential has riled up many people in the country, leading to increased tensions at multiple areas in the country. In most refilling stations, people were seen bringing their fuel tanks of their motorbikes as fuel stations stopped issuing fuel to cans and other canisters. Amidst this, incidents of violence were reported at certain refilling stations in the country. Last night, tensions arose at the Bibile refilling station between the police and the general public. The tensions had arisen because the filling station had stopped issuing fuel to cans and barrels, and also due to the people claiming that the fuel issued was not sufficient. In the meantime, the residence of an owner of a filling station in Ipalogamain area in Anuradhapura was torched by a group of individuals. The incident had occurred at around 9:40 p.m. last night. Although the homeowner's wife and his 2 children were at home at the time the house was set ablaze, none of them had sustained any injuries. However, the house was completely destroyed in the fire. It is reported that the filling station owner's oldest child is preparing to sit for the advanced level examination, and all his study materials and books have been destroyed by the fire.
Now, Transparency International Sri Lanka presented a set of recommendations that lay down the main anti-corruption reforms that are crucial in the immediate, medium and long term if Sri Lanka is to rise above the present crisis and bring about a real change. Issuing a statement today, TISL said that 2022 has so far been a tumultuous year for Sri Lanka, with the country teetering dangerously close to defaulting. Economists have noted that the situation will only get worse before it can get better. TISL said it maintains its stance that the prevailing crisis has been caused by decades of misuse and management of public resources, systemic corruption, and an overall lack of transparency and accountability in both governance as well as in the public service sector. While a robust economic recovery plan is the need of the hour, if people and systems that are entrusted with implementing such a plan are corrupt or perceived to be corrupt, there will be little to no acceptance from the people who will have to bear the brunt of this recovery plan, TISL said in its statement. In the light of the above, CISL presented a set of recommendations that lays down the main anti-corruption reforms that are crucial immediately and in the medium-long term if Sri Lanka is to rise above the current crisis. Also making news today, the Department of Meteorology warned of several severe spells of showers in parts of the country with strong winds of about 40 kilometers per hour at times. In its latest marine weather forecast for sea areas around the island too, the Met Department warned of temporary strong gusty winds of up to 70 kilometers per hour and rough seas that can be experienced during thunder showers over the next 24 hours.
In its weather forecast for the day, the Department of Meteorology warned of several spells of showers in the western, Sabaragamuwa and northwestern provinces and in the districts of Nuwara, Kandy, Galle and Matara. Mainly fair weather conditions will prevail elsewhere during the next 24 hours. Strong winds of about 40 km per hour can be expected at times over the western slope of the Central Hills, northern, north central and northwestern provinces and in the Hambantota and Trincomalee districts. Meanwhile, in its marine weather forecast for sea areas around the island, for the next 24 hours, the Meteorological Department warned the fisheries and naval community of temporary strong gusty winds of about 60 to 70 km per hour and very rough seas during thunder showers. The Disaster Management Centre meanwhile advised the general public on precautions that should be taken during the coming days as warnings of strong winds on both land and sea areas have been issued.
A person in possession of $50,000 was arrested by Police Special Task Force in the Velikada area on suspicion of money laundering. Now, Velikada Police said the 36-year-old man was arrested last evening at a shop in Rajagiriya. Upon searching his bag, the STF personnel had discovered 500 notes of $100 denomination. The suspect is reportedly a permanent resident of Hatton, who is temporarily residing in the area of Colombo 15. He had failed to reveal how he had come into possession of the foreign currency and for what purpose he was in possession of the currency at the time and at the location. The suspect's car and 2 mobile phones have also been taken into police custody. Now, as announced by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, in 2 weeks, it will become illegal for Sri Lankans to hold more than $10,000 in hand as new laws are to come into effect, revising down the amount allowed to be held in hand from $15,000 to $10,000. On Thursday, Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe said measures will be taken to crack down on anyone found to be in possession of the forex exceeding the prescribed amount and be charged a fine as well. Accordingly, the governor announced a grace period of 2 weeks to deposit this money either in foreign currency accounts in the banking system or surrender that money and convert them to rupees and keep them in rupee form.
We are going to give a grace period of 2 weeks for them to be able to deposit this money either in their foreign currency accounts in the banking system or surrender that money and convert into rupees and keep that money in their rupee accounts. They can keep it in the bank account or they can convert into rupees. That's only for a kind of period that we concession. After that, our Foreign Exchange Act gives us authority to impose fines. After that, the fines can be based on that. There are certain limits. For example, value of the transaction is, if they have $100,000, we can impose fine up to $100,000. It means that they are going to lose their money if they hold this foreign currency in there. And also we are getting some information, like what happened last week. Our officers with law enforcement authority will be going for that information and will be conducting raids after 2 weeks. And then if we found that money, those are subject to depositing in the banks as well as certain fines that we can impose. Basically, intention is to get this, whatever the foreign currencies in circulation outside the bank system into the bank system. Here the idea is that will help for us to use those foreign currency to be used to support people's essential import. That certainly is good even for them. For example, if someone holding dollars in their hands, now currency dollar is now depreciating, and if you deposit the money into bank, you get interest of about 20%. And if you wait for further time, more time, you might be forced to sell at a lower exchange rate, because now exchange rate is already trending downwards. And this is best interest of people who are holding dollars, and this is best opportunity for them to convert and deposit in the banking system and take rupees and earn a good interest in their rupee deposit. That's, I think, the best. If you look at on financial terms, that is also a best opportunity for them, as well as it will be good for the country, because we can use that money to support or finance essential imports.
The Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Kristina Georgieva said that governments need to subsidize the cost of goods and food as well as energy for the poorest members of society, and without the correct support, the protests seen in Sri Lanka could be repeated in other countries. Kristalina Georgieva, while speaking to the BBC, said that such similar unrest before the COVID-19 pandemic from France to Chile was caused by a sense of inequality growing and decisions being made without the support of the people. She said, quote, "If we are to learn any lessons from 2019, it is to be much more humble about policy decisions and engage in multiple ways with people, because policies must be for people, not the paper we write them on," unquote. Kristalina Georgieva said that the support needs to be provided in a very targeted manner, preferably by providing subsidies directly to the people. And that wraps up tonight's edition of your English service on AdaDerana 24. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.